Welcome back. Well, the pandemic has shifted the way we view money. It's made us more aware of our cash flow and highlighted the importance of sticking to a budget. So, here to share some tips for budgeting during this pandemic is our resident money expert, the one and only Melissa Leong. Welcome back.
Hello, so nice to see you.
Melissa, we always love having you on. And I got to admit, though, I am not a big budgeter, but I'll admit, kind of a little bit more intrigued about the idea of starting a family budget, especially during these times where I feel like I'm spending so much money on groceries. Anyway, why do you think it's important for everyone to get started on a budget, and where can we start?
Not many people would probably describe themselves as big budgeters, maybe because we call it budgeting and that just sounds like super boring homework or some really painful accounting. But you can call it whatever you like. Going forward, I'm going to call it maybe a money strategy or a spending plan, because that is essentially what it is. It is a way to guide your family towards your money goals, and it's a way to shine a spotlight on basically where you are spending your hard-earned cash and making sure that you are happy with that. And so, okay, bare basics. You are going to figure out the inflow of your money, basically how much money you make, what is coming in, and where it's going, the outflow. And so people do this in a lot of different ways. They use apps, they use spreadsheets. There's a government online tool that you could use. It's very easy to create a spending plan. I'm old school. I use a paper and a pen, and I will download my bank statements and just go through them and categorize them. And what you're trying to see is that you make more than you spend. That's personal finance 101.
Okay. I like this idea. I can see how this is valuable. In terms of frequency, how often should we be sort of revisiting our financial plan and like our goals, especially when everything right now is in a lot of flux, let's be honest.
If you feel out of control, if you feel like your habits are out of line, then I would revisit it once a month. This is just until you have better clarity on your situation. This is until you feel like you have better spending habits. I will revisit mine a few times a year. And to be fair, like you said, a lot of things are in flux and things are changing. And so it's really good to revisit it just to make sure that the changes in your life are reflected in your spending plan. So maybe you are making a reduced income, or maybe you have more money because you have less to spend on during the pandemic. Maybe your goals have changed. Maybe before you were paying off debt and now you want to buy a house as well. Maybe before you thought, well, the gym is really just a want. But now during the pandemic, you think, for my physical and mental health, this is a need. And so you want to at least create this spending plan once so that you can at least go back and maybe fiddle with it and, play with the numbers a little bit.
Okay, so we're making a plan, which is a great place to start. The second part, however, is adhering to that plan. So, what is your advice on sticking to what we actually plan?
Okay, I'm not going to lie. It can be really tough to stick to a financial plan, just like a fitness plan, right? So an example of both of that would be you make this great plan. You're like, yeah, I'm excited. I could do this. And then after a long day at work, you're exhausted and you're stressed and you think, I have to make a healthy meal. I'm just going to order takeout. And so you're off your spending plan. And so what I try to do is I try to get ahead of that. I will prioritize things and take care of it right away so that when a hard day comes, I don't have to make that tough decision. I do that by automating my savings. Another thing is that when you create your spending plan, you can look at it and say, okay, I can't leave nothing for fun because that's a recipe for disaster. You need to have something for yourself to spend. And so I would allocate money either through cash per week, or during the pandemic, it's more, I have been putting money into a separate spending account. So an account that's associated with a debit card, and I'll use that. The other thing is you have to know your own traps. You have to know your own habits. You have to know yourself. If you're buying in the middle of the night, then delete your credit card information from your phone and move it away from your bed. If you're buying spontaneously, remove the temptation, maybe unsubscribe from shopping emails, have a phone a friend system in place, or maybe institute a 24-hour waiting period for any purchases.
Oh my gosh, you're talking to Melissa in bed last night shopping. Okay. Now let's go to the other side of this. Let's talk about budgeting because listen, this pandemic has really hit a lot of people hard. All the way from the worst case scenarios of people losing their jobs, or one person in the household has lost their job. They're down to a one income home and you're juggling, credit card payments, rent, and mortgage. Talk to us about the best course of action to budget when times are now tougher than ever in the pocketbook.
A lot of people have been struggling during this time. And to them, I would say that I'm sorry, it's hard. It's definitely hard. And there is help out there for you. And I would seek that help. That might come from an accredited credit counselor. That might come from a bank advisor or maybe a money planner, or it could come from your family and friends. I would really lean on your support network because there have been lots of studies that show that if you have peer support and you are, trying to achieve a money goal, you will be more successful if you have peer support, even by text these days. So, I wouldn't say, call your friend and tell them how much money you're making, but you could just tell them, I have a money goal. Can I check in with you every Friday? And can you keep me on track? The other thing is that if you are having a hard time making money choices, I would try to remember to talk about things in terms of trade-offs. And so either or language, should I buy this? Or should I put some money aside in case I lose my job? The same can be said about time as a resource. Should I be doing this with my time right now? Or should I be doing this and trying to make some extra bucks to be able to pay down some of my debt? And finally, when you look at your plan, don't just look at your wants, also look at your needs, because some of those fixed expenses can also be, moved down a little bit. Maybe you can call some of your service providers. A lot of people are being very understanding during this time. It is worth a call. I called my insurance company and said, I'm not commuting right now, and they lowered my premiums.
Okay, let's talk about the other side of the spectrum. And you alluded to it off the top that for those who haven't lost their jobs and life is pretty much carried on the same financially, those are people who may be actually building this stash of cash. So what is your advice on how you can, make that actually grow even more during this time?
We are all in the same storm, but we are in different boats. And so, like you said, there are some people who actually have more money during this time. And so you could use that extra money to pay down debt, to build up your emergency fund, and to maybe save for some future spending, like a post-pandemic vacation or something like that. But if you want to use that money for a long-term goal, which I think that is a very good use of extra money right now, like retirement, like your kids' education. These kinds of long-term goals require that you invest the money. And I know it might feel stressful to think about that because you think maybe the market's volatile. Maybe you think, well, someone told me that the market is overheated right now. But if you have a long time horizon over 10 years and that money can grow, the best thing to do is to put it to work maybe in a tax sheltered vehicle like a TFSA, like an RRSP for your retirement, or an RESP so you can get the government grant for your kids' education.
Let's talk about emergency funds because I don't have one and I've really thought about one. So what does it look like? And maybe I should get one?
I am a huge proponent of the emergency fund. I've talked about this a lot with you ladies about my own life and how it has rescued me in so many situations. When I lost my job, when my husband became sick, when the pandemic hit, we really leaned on this emergency fund. And this is the lesson of COVID-19. You never know what is coming around the corner. And you don't want to be caught in a situation where you think, oh, I'm just going to have to go further into debt or just take on more debt. You want an emergency fund. I think people get focused on how much should be in it, but really you should just put aside some cash in a high interest savings account or somewhere that's easily accessible so that it's there for you. It could be one month's worth of living expenses in case you lose your job. It could be 3 months. If you have a more precarious situation, if you take care of dependents, if you are a freelancer, for example, it might be 6 months, might be up to a year. You have to look at your own situation, but having that stash of cash, I cannot tell you how grateful you will be for it if life happens.
It's tax season around the corner for all Canadians, and there's also a CERB. And there's also, some people who may have to pay back some kind of money. What is your advice as we are entering tax season as to what is the best plan of action?
So if you have been receiving the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, you owe taxes on that. And so at tax time, the government will be expecting their contribution back to, and if you have been maybe taking up a side hustle, if you've been freelancing during this time, you've never done that before, you also owe the government some money back in at tax time. And so this is a time you should be getting yourself organized for that. And maybe if you have been working on the side, you also are able to benefit from a lot of tax deductions. So make sure that you go through the list, make sure you understand that. And the government is asking people to file online during the pandemic. They would prefer that. And so if you've never done that before, this is your opportunity to at least familiarize yourself with the platform so that you're ready to do so.
Got it. Wow, always such great advice and perfect timing. Melissa, thank you so much for all of these amazing tips. And of course, be prudent with your money, I think is the lesson that we take away. We'll be right back right after this.